Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's a very special Shabbos this week as we have the Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the beginning of the month of Nisan, the month of miracles. And we celebrate the special holiday of the year of the holiday of Passover, where we become truly free. But before that, we have this Shabbos in which we have 3 Torahs. The first Torah we read is Torah of the week, Parshat Tazria. The second one is Rosh Chodesh, because tomorrow is the first day of the month of Nisan. But the final, the third one is HaChodesh. And HaChodesh is a very interesting, which means the month, is a very interesting mitzvah. It's the first mitzvah that was given to the Jewish people as a people. Not the first mitzvah in the Torah, but the first mitzvah as a people when the Jewish people were coming out of Egypt or about to go out of Egypt prior to the Exodus. And that is to count the months, to follow a Jewish calendar. And what's interesting is, out of all the mitzvahs of the year, it is probably the most kept mitzvah or followed item of all of Judaism. Secular, observant, it makes no difference. Everyone needs to know about their Jewish calendar. When the yard site is, when Shabbat is, what time Shabbat is coming in, when Rosh Chodesh is, when Yom Kippur is, when Rosh Hashanah is, when the holidays, when it's Passover. And those days never match up, or almost always never match up to the secular calendar on an annual basis. And the reason for that is because the we follow, in Judaism, we follow the lunar cycle. As the Jewish people are compared to the month, which waxes and wanes, to the moon, which waxes and wanes, and gets bigger and then smaller, but then we get bigger again. And though the lunar cycle is only 355 days, whereas a solar cycle is 365 days, which leaves us with 10 days missing about every single year. And that's why every 3 years, like this year, or 7 out of 19 times, we actually have a leap year. And that's why Passover this year is all the way deep into April, and next year it will be all the way into March, because we have to follow that the Jewish that Passover should always fall out in the spring. Nevertheless, there's a very interesting lesson of, as Passover is called Chag HaAviv, the holiday of the spring, and so we have this sort of intercalendar cycle, different than the Muslims. The Muslims only follow the lunar cycle, and their Ramadan, which they're celebrating now, can be in the middle of the winter, and 18 years later, it can be in the middle of the summer. And so, in our calendar, we always have Passover around this time, but it does fluctuate a little bit. And because Passover is a holiday of spring, nevertheless, it's a very powerful lesson of the Jewish calendar itself. And so the process of a Jewish calendar today we get in the mail, you get from the Rock Family Shul, a beautiful calendar. It tells you exactly what time, exactly what date. And we have a calendar cycle from the time of the destruction, or real post Sanhedrin era, of the 70th Common Era, from that time all the way forever until Mashiach comes, God willing. But in the temple era, and God, the mitzvah of HaChodesh is actually, we go out and see the new moon. And so the new moon, you have to have witnesses that come out and see the new moon. Why is that important? How come we just can't figure out a cycle? And so actually the moon is a 29.5 day cycle. And because we can't have a half day Rosh Chodesh, and so they would go out and see the new moon. And when they would go out and see the new moon, they would then let the Jewish people know that Rosh Chodesh has begun. And they would get on top of the mountain, make a big fire, a bonfire, and then that's how they would communicate from city to city that Rosh Chodesh has begun. And that's another reason why in diaspora outside of Israel, we have 2-day holidays, because it took a whole other day to get to Babylonia. And that's why we'll have 2 Seders, not just because we want to be at both parents and in-laws, but because of this period of time that took 24 hours to communicate. They didn't have WhatsApp or emails then, to the Jewish people in Babylonia. And so, it's something very interesting. Now, the witnesses would go out and they would testify that a new month has begun. And it's based on human eyesight. It's possible we make a mistake. And we would only know we make a mistake because we saw that the new moon was a new sliver, and we'd realize the next day that we actually made a mistake, that the new moon didn't begin on the 30th day, but actually on the 1st, or 29th into the 1st. And so, what happens when we realize we made that mistake? What happens when we realize that we're celebrating Rosh Chodesh on the wrong day, which would make us celebrate Rosh Hashanah on the wrong day, Yom Kippur on the wrong day, and every holiday would be 1 day off? And the answer is, it's never 1 day off, because when the Jewish people decide that it's the day, even if it was wrong, that's the day that makes it holy. And so when we say it's Rosh Chodesh, when the Beit Din says Rosh Chodesh, that's when it actually was. And so it teaches a very powerful lesson that we can actually be control of our own time. That time shouldn't control us, but we should control our own time, and we can make time holy. And this is the first mitzvah that God gives the Jewish people. If you want to become truly free, if you want to leave have exodus and leave your physical and your spiritual elements, the only way to do it is if you're in control of your own time and you don't let time control you. When we make time holy, we realize the importance of time, which we realize more and more every single day how critical our time is and how important and holy our time is. That is how we become truly free. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and tonight 7:15, tomorrow 10 o'clock.